Jackson was a seaside rabbit. He was born in a sandy burrow on top of a cliff, and as soon as he was old enough to come and sit on the grass and look down at the sea, he was fascinated by it. While his brothers played about on the cliff-top field, Jackson would sit by himself and watch the waves rolling in to break upon the sandy shore. He watched the tides go in and out. He watched the seabirds wheeling and diving, and especially he watched the tall sailing ships gliding past in the distance. How beautiful they are, thought Jackson. How I should love to run away to sea and be a sailor. He consulted his mother. "Mama," he said. "Yes, Jackson." "There are men on those ships, aren't there?" "Yes, Jackson, sailors." "I should like to be a sailor, Mama." "Silly boy," said Jackson's mother. "Rabbits don't go on ships." "But, Mama, the sea is in my blood." "You go on a ship," said his mother, "and your blood will be in the sea. Men eat rabbits." Jackson went away to think about this. I could hide, he thought. There must be lots of places to hide in a big sailing ship. I could be a stowaway. I won't tell Mama or Papa, I'll just go. So he did. He set off across the cliff-top field very early one morning, determined to find where the sailing ships came in. That evening, climbing wearily to the top of a far headland, he looked down and saw before him just what he wanted. There below was a wide bay, and on its shores a large seaside town with a great harbour in which lay a number of tall ships. Tired out, Jackson found an empty rabbit burrow and crawled into it. "Tomorrow," he murmured as he drifted to sleep, "tomorrow I shall go aboard my ship." That night, Jackson had the weirdest dream. He was, it seemed, in a strange country, not cool and rainy like his homeland, but dry and very hot. Suddenly he saw the most extraordinary animal. It was as tall as a man, with reddish fur, ears like a donkey, and a face like a sheep. Its arms were short, and it stood upright, balanced on two enormously strong legs and a long, thick tail. Then the dream turned into a nightmare, for the monstrous creature began to come towards him, not walking nor running, but hopping in huge bounds on those great hind legs. And as it drew near, Jackson could see something even more frightening. On the animal's stomach was a sort of pocket, and out of this pocket poked another head, with ears like a baby donkey and a face like a lamb. Jackson woke with a squeal of terror. "What's eating you?" said a voice, and there beside him in the burrow was another rabbit, a young doe of about his own age. "I was having a bad dream," he said. "In my burrow," said the other. "Oh, sorry," said Jackson. "I didn't know. By the way, my name's Jackson." "Funny sort of name." "Not really. My father's called Jack. Anyway, who are you?" "My mother doesn't believe in naming children," said the young doe. "She's had so many, she can't be bothered. She just calls us all Bunny." "Bunny," said Jackson. "That's nice. I like it. And I like you," he thought. "I wonder if... You don't fancy going to sea, do you?" Bunny?" he said. "To sea? In a ship, to sail away? I want to sail the seas. I want to see the world." "You're crazy," Bunny said, but nice, she thought. "Well," she said, "it'll be daylight before very long. We better get started." When they reached the town, Jackson and Bunny hopped through the empty, silent streets until, as dawn was breaking, they reached the docks. "Look!" cried Jackson as they made their way along the cobbled quay. "There's a ship." Tied alongside was a great 3-mast sailing ship whose sides towered above the 2 little rabbits. "How ever shall we get aboard?" said Bunny. "The same way that the sailors do," said Jackson. "Follow me." And he ran along the quarry until he reached the foot of a long, narrow wooden gangplank. It was nearly broad daylight by now, and there were noises on board, bangings and knockings and men's voices and footsteps. "Quick," said Jackson, "up we go," and up they went, scampering up the gangplank, on whose side was fixed a large printed notice. "Brave British hearts, to all those of an adventurous spirit, wishing to seek their fortunes and start a new life in a far country, take note that the Peninsular and Oriental Navigation Companies, Clipper, Atlanta, will set sail for Australia on the 3rd day of April 1842. The moment that Jackson and Bunny reached the top of the gangplank, they saw to their horror a number of sailors busy swabbing down the decks. Luckily, the men's backs were towards the 2 rabbits, who instantly dashed for cover. A frightened rabbit goes straight underground, and though there was no ground to go under, Jackson saw nearby a large square black hole, and into it he dived head first, Bunny following. Down the hatch they fell. As well as passengers, the Atlanta was carrying in her hold goods for the settlers in Australia, and luckily for the rabbits, for they fell a long way. It was a cargo of bales of cloth. On these, Jackson and Bunny landed and bounced. "Are you all right, Bunny?" gasped Jackson. "Yes, I think so. Where are we?" "In a very big burrow by the look of things," said Jackson. "A good place for us to stow away, I should think." "Would you?" said Bunny. "Well, yes, we can hide amongst all this stuff. No one will ever find us. We can spend the whole voyage down here." "And at the end of the voyage," said Bunny, "how exactly do we get out again?" Jackson looked up at the open hatch high above. He scratched one ear thoughtfully with a hind foot. "Ah," he said. "And while we're down here," went on Bunny, "what exactly do we eat?" "Ah," said Jackson again. "Or drink?" "Ah," said Jackson. "Yes, But before he could add to this, they heard the sound of footsteps on the deck above, and voices, and then suddenly the square of daylight vanished as the hatch cover was put back, leaving the hold of the ship in darkness. "It had better be a very short voyage," said Bunny. "Otherwise it would seem to me that without food or water we shall not see much of the world after all. We shall simply die down here, and all because of you, Jackson." All that morning the 2 rabbits hopped about in the gloom, exploring the great stack of bales of cloth that covered the floor of the hold, and finding nothing else. Above them there was much hustle and bustle on deck as the passengers came aboard, and then, around midday, a sudden great crash of sound as a brass band struck up on the quayside. Amongst its noise the rabbits could hear voices bellowing orders, and then the cries of farewell of those who were leaving, and of those who had come to wave them goodbye. Then, when the music had stopped and the shouts and calls had died away, peace and quiet returned as the Atlanta nosed her way out of the harbour and set for her journey to the opposite side of the world. Down in the hold, Jackson and Bunny felt the motion as the clipper met the open sea and heard the creaking of her timbers. Squatting side by side on a bale of cloth, the rabbits rose and fell as the ship swooped and dipped over the waves. "Jackson," said Bunny. "Yes." "I don't feel very well." "Me neither." "I don't think I'm a very good sailor." "Nor me. I wish I hadn't come." "Me too," said Jackson. "I'm sorry I got you into all this, Bunny. It's all my fault. I shall regret it for the rest of my life." Bunny snuggled up to him. "Don't worry," she said. "That won't be long." By the following day, the rabbits had grown used to the motion of the ship. They had also grown extremely hungry and thirsty. When the ship had been some days at sea, the captain ordered an inspection of the various holds to see that each was watertight and that their cargo had not shifted. By now, too weak and miserable to care, the rabbits watched helplessly as the hatch cover was removed, and a seaman climbed down a ladder carrying a lantern. A big, bearded man, he shone the light about as he examined the bales of cloth, and then its beam fell upon the wretched stowaways. "Well, I never," said the seaman softly. "You will make a nice meal, my hearties, you will."